Hello and welcome to Brands Hatch GP Circuit and rounds 15 and 16 of the GT Cup. Something a bit different today. We thought we'd find out just what it takes to run two cars at a race meeting. So we're spending the day with TF Sport, who's got two Aston Martins, one in GTA and one in GTO.
There's a mandatory noise limit for the circuit and for the championship. So it's 105 here, decibels. So check every car at 3/4 of revs. Just make sure that when we go out on the circuit, we're not going to exceed their limit they set. Brands Hatch is particularly bad because there's a lot of residential houses just over the back of the circuit.
Now's a sort of stressy time for Paul because it's just before qualifying. The nerves start to build, butterflies start in your stomach, so you start to worry about all the things that could go wrong. And I basically do a bit of work with him, just refreshing his mind on where he needs to be on the track, just to get the line right. If he can relax, stay on line, get all the apexes, use the full width of the track, he's going to be quick.
Today's qualifying really is just to get bedded back in with the car and then to improve hopefully over the last time of being at Brands. So it's really just about me just getting back into it and just going for it.
It's the slower corners that are the harder ones because you tend to overdrive them if you're not careful. So trying to get into calm through the slower stuff, through druids and that sort of thing, and get the fast exits, really focus on fast exits.
Also, just for your info, we are garage 30 to 31, so when you come in the pit lane, or if you need to, we are literally immediately on the right, second garage down. Roger that.
So Martin's going to do 2 laps. He's then going to come in, we'll check tyre pressures, just mechanically check the car, make sure everything's sound, and then send him out for the remainder of the session.
Okay, Paul, that puts us P3 at the moment on a 31.6. Pole is Bergen on a 30.7. Okay, Paul, that puts us P2. You are 3/10 behind Bergen. We have 10 minutes left, 10 minutes remaining, so 6 or 7 laps. Paul, just find yourself some space, do a cool down lap, and then have another go at it. 29.5 is the target, half a second faster.
Thanks, Tom, it's the half a second I was looking for. I'm going to try this track now. Loads of traffic and car in the gravel, turn 1.
Okay, Paul, well, you just keep pushing on this lap, otherwise you won't cross the line in time to have another go at it.
Red flag, it's over. P2, how much do I need to climb, Tom?
You are 1.5 tenths off pole.
Qualifying's just been cut short. There's a red flag come out at the moment, so we had 3 minutes remaining, but it's obviously a non-recoverable vehicle, so they've called it early. We are P2 with Paul, which is very good. Front row start, I think 10th off pole, and I think Martin is P4 in class, so hopefully a happy camp.
So yeah, that's really good for us. We wanted to make sure we're on the front row. We are, and we're looking forward to a great weekend.
Pleased with qualifying, 2.5 seconds quicker than I went here last time around. Slightly disappointed at the end because I aborted a lap ready to go for the last one. Red flags, but story of the day. But no, very pleased.
Okay, so Paul's just finished qualifying, and what we tend to do is just spend some time in the cut, bit of peace and quiet, go through some data. We can sort of put a comparison lap time up. So we'll put up one of my lap times from a previous event, and then I can put Paul's trace on top of it. So here on the TV you can see the different 2 lines, and I can then work with Paul on the particular corners that he needs to work on to gain the extra time. And you can see the difference in time just drops away here to the right hand side. So we'll look at the bigger drops really and see if we can find a little bit of time there for Paul during the race. Every little bit helps, as I said. A few tenths here and there just adds up to exactly what you need for either pole or getting fastest lap, which is more points for the championship. Then we go back to a different screen which will show us the actual video files. So you can put the two videos up side by side, and then I can look at where Paul's placed the car, because sometimes the data trace can be a bit sort of off-putting and you think, well, why is that? And it's actually because there's a car in front he's had to overtake. So you have to be careful you're looking at the right bits, and the video really helps to just place the car using the full width of the track, making sure we're bang on the apexes as well. So you can see Paul's on the left here, my lap's on the right. It's a different day, different setup and that sort of thing, so you will get little deviations, but basically we're looking to get as close to this apex as possible, and then pause before we get onto the power. So if I just go forward a little bit more, I'll make sure we're not letting the car out too soon, letting it out the right time to get the maximum gain on throttle coming out the corner onto the straight. Paul did a great job in qualifying, so we're P2, front row of the grid, which is good, and we only needed a tenth or two to get pole, so looking good. Now up to this one, this is the one where you've just got to sort of carry a little bit more speed in. Remember the corner's banked, so you'll get a bit more grip than it looks like by just coming off the brake pedal, pushing it right down to the apex curb on the left. So if you can get slightly earlier into that corner, a little bit lower down towards the apex, you'll be able to get on the power earlier coming out. So try not to get on the throttle before the apex if you can help it. Get it right down low and then into the power.
Okay, so Paul, we've just seen you reviewing your data with Andy. What kind of a help is that for you as a driver?
Well, it highlights the areas where I don't need to worry too much, and it definitely highlights the areas where I need to work really hard. If you can convert that into the race, which is hard to do, there's a lot going on, then it could be the difference between winning the race, getting the fastest lap, or not even being on the podium.
And then you have one green flag to go, so it's important to get as much heat in those little black tyres as you can. Yeah, for sure. Now I'm going to do my best for fastest lap, Tom, so you're going to have to give me a little bit of feedback on that. I don't care where I finish as long as I finish, but obviously I want to win, but we've got to get these points while Nelson isn't here. Okay, so not the heat period on this roll without that. Okay, roger that. Okay, Paul, head down now, you're in the lead. Let's just try and pull a gap. You need to get fastest lap once you're up to temperature and everything. Currently, you only have fastest lap by 1 tenth, so you need a bit more of a margin than that, because the force behind you is going faster and faster every lap. Currently, you have the fastest lap by 4 tenths of a second. Bergen is getting closer.
Well, we're P1 with one of them, with Paul, and Martin is P5 in class. So, all right, still circulating. So, hopefully, we can see out the last 3 or 4 minutes.
Passing the back markers now.
Okay, Paul, that'll be 3 left remaining, 3 left remaining. Currently, you still have fastest lap. Okay, Okay, Paul, well done. Let's check the flag. That is race win and the fastest lap pole for now. And let's see how he did shoot, but currently he's lapping 9 tenths slower. So, a good day.
So I love it. The other pros took each other out. I nearly collected them, but the great race for the team. Awesome result.
Can't want for more, can you? It looks like we got fastest lap as well, so that's great, and won the race. So Paul will be happy. That's what we aim to try and achieve. Unfortunately, obviously, the two leading cars seem to have it coming together. But, you know, that's racing. That's what happens sometimes. So it happens to us. It happens to everyone. But no, Paul will be very happy with that. It's good. Good day's work.
Awesome. Maximum points.
Happy days.
Oh yeah, happy days.
Can you follow me at the podium, sir?
Yeah, I'm just over the moon with that win, and the start was quite difficult. The Audi got past me, but the plan was simply to get the points and to make sure we finish in the top three. And the guys in P1 and P2 collided. It was a bit of a big accident as such because they covered the circuit with their cars. I managed not to collect them, and then off I went. The Audi was still in front of me, but he was burning his tyre, and any second out was going to explode. So I kept my distance, which was the right thing to do. His tyre went, I went past, and that was P1. And fastest lap and pole for tomorrow, so it doesn't get any better than that, does it? Let's be honest.
One of the other teams here at Brands Hatch today, running Kevin Riley's Lotus, is made up almost entirely of students from the National Motorsport Academy.
The National Motorsport Academy was set up for people who are working in the motorsport industry, and they may not have originally got the certificates or a higher education qualification, and they want to move on or be promoted within their company. So what they can do, they can sit our degree online in the evenings, weekends, and still be based within their company as they're doing currently. So what the students are doing here today, they're sitting on the online programme, they're here experiencing the motorsport. As it happens, they can get involved. As you can see, the students are actually involved working on the cars, building up that experience, and also the knowledge that comes with a degree. They can do that online, sitting at the computers at night, working through their lectures. There's a mixture of professionals and students. We've got students from Staffordshire University as well. We're in partnership with Staffordshire University, and they're here with us today. And there's myself and Gareth Downing, who drives and is also an engineer, and we work on the car, showing them what to do, make sure things don't go wrong, etc.
Currently I'm doing the motorsport technology course. I'm on the placement year at the moment, and then I'll go back to complete the full BSc Honours. Started on a foundation degree, and you do 2 years and then I come on placement year. Because we get to work hands-on on the car itself, not kind of watch what's going on. We actually get involved and take part and fix it and maintain it, sort the data out and everything really, so get a hell of a lot of experience, which is always good for going on in the future and moving forward after we finish with the team and we go into the full workplace on our own.
The main event of the weekend then is the mandatory pit stop 50-minute race, and it's Paul Bailey and David Fairbrother on the front row, clear of Phil Bergen and Tom Webb, then Marcus Hogarth and Wayne Mars. A huge field of cars. Watch for Richard Chamberlain, 17th in qualifying, but he should go very well from there, with then Alan Purbrick and Andy Roby completing the field as they get ready for the rolling start. The Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, ever a favourite of competitors in the GT Cup Championship, and this is their second visit of the season, as it is the blue, yellow and white Aston Martin of Paul Bailey getting ready to go as the lights change, as the field then charge towards Paddock Hill Bend. Bailey's got the advantage with Phil Bergen slipping through into second place, and Marcus Hogarth also squeezing past David Fairbrother into third. It's been a good start as well in the Lotus Evora from Kevin Riley as the field climb up Halewood Hill into Druids, all jostling for position. The Lotus just gets pushed out wide by Hogarth, and then it's Tom Webb in fifth as they swoop through Graham Hill Bend along the Cooper Straight and then into Surtees that will propel them out onto the Grand Prix loop. They can see bobbing and weaving the Porsche of Richard Chamberlain as he looks to make ground in the early stages. Lights ablaze for Paul Bailey. This is a golden opportunity for him to make ground early on. Phil Bergen in pursuit behind him, then Marcus Hogarth. Going very well at the head of the GTB group at the moment is Tom Webb in the BMW. He is already ahead of group rival David Fairbrother, and they've got Wayne Mars snapping at their heels. Aston Martin roars through Dingledell, climbing up to Sheen, and then on to Stirling's through the left-hander and then downhill steeply into Clearways, which is such a formidable challenge here on the Grand Prix loop. And Bergen closing right onto terms with Paul Bailey at Clearways as they then both accelerate along the Bradman Straight on to conclude the first lap of the race. And both of them beginning to open up a very handy buffer over the rest of the field. Of course, in this longer 50-minute race, that is when the pit stop tactics really do take on an extra dimension. Managing the strategy through the race is absolutely key. So the more ground you can build early on, the better. But Bergen is certainly keeping Paul Bailey honest, and this is great stuff from Phil Bergen. He's had the pace all year, but in the last couple of events, it's been paired with consistency. There is Alan Purbrick in the Saker Chamberlain, carving his way through the field. He's just moved clear of Mike Seller in the Porsche as the rear spoiler wobbles in the turbulent wake behind Paul Bailey for Phil Bergen. The pair of them through Hawthorns on towards Westfield. Both drivers pushing very hard early on as they look to break clear of Marcus Hogarth. Hogarth, meanwhile, leading the GTC group, whereas the two leaders running the GTO group. Bergen closing up again on Bailey through Stirling's. And this is going to be a real test here for Paul Bailey to withstand the pressure from Phil Bergen lap upon lap, because the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit can bite. It's a very tricky circuit and one without masses of runoff, plenty of gravel traps as well. A small mistake can easily cost you a chance of finishing the race. Bailey taking a slightly more defensive run in towards Paddock Hill Bend in comparison to Phil Bergen. He clearly is aware that Bergen is snapping at his heels and has got the pace. Just wonder though, with Andy Schultz waiting in the wings to take over mid-race, whether or not there comes a point where Paul Bailey realises he's going to lose time defending from Phil Bergen and may allow the Audi to slip through. But for the moment, the pair of them run nose to tail into Surtees, and again Bailey just covering the inside line maybe a little bit more than he needs to. There is Stephen Fresler in the Ginetta, and he has then got a good gap over Ruben Akashayan and Martin Johnson. Into Hawthorns again, and Phil Bergen looks to the inside of Paul Bailey, and Bergen commits to the move. Bailey's not seen him, they make contact, and around goes Paul Bailey and into the tyre wall. I don't think he's hit it too heavily. Phil Bergen spins around and just stops the Audi from clattering in to the Armco barrier. And Bailey is beat. You can see the rear wheels spinning up forlornly. Fortunately, I don't think either car has been too badly damaged. It's such an unfortunate instant. They just didn't quite give each other enough space. And now promotes the white Ferrari, Marcus Hogarth, to lead of the race ahead of Kevin Riley in the Lotus Forum. Then we have got Tom Webb in the BMW. Richard Chamberlain has been a big beneficiary of all of this, because he is already up in something like 5th place. Rob Gaffney applies the pressure to Mike Seller. And then plunge downhill as the race leaders arrive into Paddock Hill Bend. That has really turned the race on its head, seeing two of the quickest cars in the race effectively out of contention early on. Phil Bergen should rejoin, and he's going to be towards the tail of the field. Paul Bailey may require a little bit of assistance to get up and running as wave yellow flags at Graham Hill Bend, and that would suggest that the safety car has come out. Indeed it has, the safety car boards being displayed to the drivers. The reason for that must surely be the recovery of Paul Bailey's car. What that's going to serve to do is close the entire field up together. They've just begun to get into the rhythm of the race, and then it is all brought under control. But the marshals at Brands Hatch always do a fantastic job, so be very surprised if we're under safety car conditions for too many laps. Now, this was the scene of the incident at Hawthorns, and yes, it is the JCB coming to position just to drag Paul Bailey out. Now Bailey should be able to rejoin the fray here. I don't think he's got too much damage. Fortunately, he scrubbed off a lot of speed before he tapped the tyre wall. He will be a couple of laps down, but there might still be some points to be had. Recovery complete. The race about to get underway, and it's Marcus Hogarth who is going to pace the field along the Bradman Straight as we get up and running again. Kevin Riley in pursuit, and then we have got Tom Webb in the BMW. It's Wayne Miles in fourth, and Richard Chamberlain's Porsche up into fifth. Now this is fantastic news for Richard Chamberlain from 17th on the grid. He's already gained several places, and he could in fairly short order be up to the front of the field. Meanwhile, David Fairbrother in the Porsche just running a little bit wide. He has got another of the Porsches looking to challenge him. That is Mark Smith. Smith in turn under a little bit of pressure from Stephen Fresler in the Ginetta. Already waved yellow flags. Surtees, not sure what that's for. Front of the field though, Hogarth leading, as now the real battle is the one for third, fourth and fifth, because Richard Chamberlain starting to apply the pressure to Wayne Miles, and Chamberlain looks to the inside of Miles into Westfield Bend. Nothing doing for the Porsche on that occasion. Kevin Riley likewise looking to turn up the heat on Marcus Hogarth. They're being joined by Tom Webb, so we have got two of the GTC group cars with the GTB group car running with them. That's what you can sometimes have when you get a situation like I had it with some of the GTO group cars falling by the wayside early on. And also the Brands Grand Prix circuit doesn't really have that many long straights. A car with nimble and agile handling can run at the front of the field. As Richard Chamberlain darts the inside of the way, Mars into Paddock Hill Bend. The Porsche saw a gap to the inside of the Ferrari and slipped through. Great stuff from Chamberlain. His next target is going to be Tom Webb, and this is what the GT Cup Championship is all about. Ferrari leads Lotus, leads BMW, leads Porsche, leads Ferrari. Aston Martin and an Audi would have been very much in the mix, but for that contact at Hawthorn. While throughout the field there are some very enjoyable battles to be found. And that is the great thing about the groups, the way that the performance balances out in and amongst the group. Stephen Fresler just clear of Ruben Ankachayan as a challenge for third place, and Richard Chamberlain goes past Tom Webb. Chamberlain up to third. He's got the Ferrari and the Lotus ahead of him, and Marcus Hogarth acting a little bit as a cork in the bottle. You get a sense that Chamberlain might be able to clear him and Riley in one fell swoop. They head down the bottom of Dingledale up through Sheen. And Hogarth taking care not to overexert the Ferrari, because this is getting towards the latter stages of the season, and therefore championship points becoming increasingly important. Chamberlain looks to prod and probe Riley through clearways, can't make it stick, instead looks to wind up the Porsche along the Bradman Straight. Now the Porsche running in the GTO group should, on balance of performance, be able to clear the Lotus. Richard Chamberlain having to work for it. Riley decides to dispute it through Paddock Hill Bend, side by side, and Richard Chamberlain around the outside finally makes the move stick as they arrive into Druids around the hairpin, and then rolling downhill towards Graham Hill Bend. Marcus Hogarth in the lead of the race, but for how long? As Chamberlain looks to line up the move to the inside of Hogarth into Surtees, and Chamberlain takes the lead, and through he goes. There is our GTE group leader, Rob Gaffney, applying all sorts of pressure to David Fairbrother. And this is the fight for second place, with Marcus Hogarth just clear of Kevin Riley and Wayne Miles. Here is our race leader, Richard Chamberlain, who started in 17th place and has steadily carved his way up through the pack. He's been aided and abetted somewhat by the intrusion of the safety car, but nonetheless, Chamberlain has picked his moments, and now that he has Muth front field has really burst clear and is beginning to build a very substantial buffer over the cars behind. But that's not unsurprising, because the battle for second is also the battle for the GTC Group honours in the race overall. Wayne Mars as well is one of the GTC runners, and then Tom Webb, the BMW, in fifth. Well, he currently heads GTB as we are beginning to approach the mid-race pit window, and now Kevin Riley really starting to apply the pressure to Marcus Hogarth in the Ferrari. The pair of them head around Graham Hill Bend. Riley looks to try and line up a move on Hogarth along the Cooper Straight. Marcus Hogarth having absolutely none of that. Riley then looks to the outside, very feisty in the Evora, and then for the switch back at Surtees. Here comes the race leader, Richard Chamberlain. We wait, we observe photosynthesis, and here comes the battle for second place. It's side by side as Marcus Hogarth covers the inside line, as he has to do, into Hawthorne. Unfortunately, just carries enough momentum, but what that's doing is bringing the white and green Ferrari of Wayne Mars into the mix. Brilliant battle between the three protagonists in the GTC group, because I should explain the way that the GT Cup Championship comes to terms with its incredibly diverse entry list is that there are multiple groups within the GT Cup Championship: GTO, GTC, GTB and GTA, and those groups essentially have got distinct paces from each other on most circuits, but then within each group the balance of performance from the different marks is very closely worked through. So here comes the race leader, Richard Chamberlain, in to make his pit stop nice and early. And often when you're a single driver entry like Richard Chamberlain is, there is a school of thought which says you either come in at the very start or end of the pit window. Also in there was Marcus Hogarth to hand over to Tom Ingram. Now that could be very interesting. There is Martin Johnson in the Aston Martin. He is under all manner of pressure from one of the BMWs. I think that's Andy Roby, who's just in pursuit. There's Mike Brown, another of the Astons. It is Roby, the silver BMW. Also in his way, Mars. He will hand over to Charles Hollings as Andy Schultz emerges from the pit lane at the wheel of the Aston Martin. Now don't forget, that car went several laps down with the safety car period earlier on. But Schultz may still be able to race it into at least a points paying position. Checks the tyre pressure for Richard Chamberlain. He will be waved on his way. Now what can Schultz do? What he could really do without, though, is any sort of safety car period. He needs a long and uninterrupted run. Meanwhile, Gareth Downing emerges from the pits in the Lotus Evora as Richard Chamberlain heads back into the race. And it really is advantage Chamberlain, because of the GTO runners, he is the one who has had the least troubled opening to the race. I suspect we can also see now Tom Ingram going strongly in the Ferrari, although Marcus Hogarth had an excellent stint as well. So there is Gareth Downing, who is still within touching distance, one would suggest, of Richard Chamberlain. As Martin Johnson has found a way past Mike Brown, both of them going the whole distance on their own, as indeed is Andy Roby, who's just in behind them. Meanwhile, the Seika is in. Another car we can expect to see flying. We just caught a glimpse of it there. It's Colin Payton is handed over to Rory Butcher, so Alan Purbrick, his job is done. Then wave the Seika out to the pits. This is the stage of the race where the order gets a little bit jumbled now. That's another car that could fly. The Ginetta now in the hands of Ollie Hancock. Likewise, Andrew Bentley now having taken over from Adrian Lester in another of the Evoras. The driver in the car that could climb the order, and that is the beauty of these pit stop races, is that the order does get a little bit jumbled through the pit stops, but you also have the dynamic of the second driver having a variant pace to the first, and also having a different speed and pace as well to the drivers going the whole distance single-handedly. Front of the field, there is no dispute that it's Richard Chamberlain to the fore. Here is Tom Ingram, the wheel of the Ferrari. He rides the curb at Stirling's, really pushing is Ingram. So here is our race leader, Richard Chamberlain. Chamberlain doesn't want to overexert the Porsche. It is a very, very finely honed piece of equipment, Richard Chamberlain's Porsche. He always extracts the maximum performance from it. There is Andy Roby. Pit stop feels like an absolute eternity when you are doing the whole race yourself. Now that is the Ginetta of Nathan Freak. Meanwhile, more Ginetta battles. John Saunders has got Rob Gaffney just in behind him. As Andy Roby rejoins the race. Gary Smith looks to apply the pressure to Nathan Freak's Ginetta. The pair of them head down through Paddock Hill Bend. Tom Ingram continues his charge. So the Ginetta and BMW continue to fight. Now that is a good opportunity, I would suspect, for the BMW Challenger. That's a disaster for the Lotus. Back into the pits. A real shame there for Gareth Downing and Kevin Riley. That car was showing so strongly earlier on, having to pick its way back through the pits. There is Andrew Bentley. He has got Andy Schultz just ahead of him. Now don't forget that Schultz is essentially a lap or so down as a result of that safety car period earlier on. So although he's coming onto terms with Charles Hollings, that is essentially to claw a lap back, not for track position. Martin Johnson in the Aston Martin continues to show strongly. Now there is Phil Bergen, another of the drivers who was caught up in the incident that prompted that safety car in the opening laps. But the difference is that Phil Bergen stayed on the lead lap of the race. He's elected to wait until really quite deep into this pit window to duck in. Therefore, Bergen could find himself played back into decent advantage. The Lotus Evora continues on its way, but is now out of contention, unfortunately, as Rob Gaffney, who has been to the fore of the GTA group, also pauses in the pits. Gaffney has really been the class act in the GTA group throughout the course of the season. There is James Greenway, taking over from David Fairbrother in the Palex Porsche, and he is up onto terms with Nathan Freak and is looking to make the move to the inside of Freak at Graham Hill Bend and slides through. Great move that from Greenway. They are in different groups. Greenway running in GTB as problems, unfortunately, for the Saker. Into the pits and engine cover off. Race leader Richard Chamberlain, all the while just continuing to reel off the laps. As James Greenway's carving through the pack. As Gary Smith demoted into Hawthorns. There's a disconsolate David Bryce stalks away from the Saker. Very frustrating. He just got up to speed, and unfortunately that is that for David. Meanwhile, Tom Ingram continuing to show very strongly. Alan Purbrick offers his congratulations and condolences. It's just one of those days, isn't it? Sometimes happens in motor racing. Here is on the cars, the Ford GTB, Tom Webb. But the pace of Rory Butcher and John Saunders makes you wonder how long Tom is going to remain there. Meanwhile, Charles Hollings also looking to move through the field into terms with Tom Ingram. Here is Chamberlain. Tom Ingram currently in second place. The question is also the progress of Phil Bergen. We've not seen much of Phil, but we know he's still in the race. We know he's in the GTO group car rather, and therefore expect him to be able to close in onto and pass some of the GTC runners for too long. Particularly now the pack is just a little bit more spread post pit stops, and whilst it means you've got more ground to cover, it also means it's just a little bit easier to pick your moments and make your moves. Now though, Richard Chamberlain, provided nothing goes wrong, is looking very well poised to claim victory. He has got through the hurdle of the pit stops. He's now got a little bit of traffic to deal with. Here is Rob Gaffney, front of GTA, and Gaffney has got nothing but empty asphalt either side of him. That's exactly how he would want it to be in the latter stages of the race. The pit stops are coming to a close as Mike Seller exits the pit lane. This is the driver in command of the race, Richard Chamberlain, in the Porsche, who took advantage of an early safety car which closed the field up, and once he took advantage has been never headed. There you saw John Saunders, who's moved clear now of Tom Webb in the GTB group. Now here comes Charles Hollings. He has got Andy Schultz just in behind him, but the pair of them not fighting position. That is Schultz trying to unlap himself. Here comes Phil Bergen, meanwhile, who is carving up through the pack. Now race victory is looking very unlikely for Phil. Certainly good GTO group points are on the cards, as is possibly a good overall finish. Oh, and the problem there for Andrew Bentley in the Lotus Evora, and another car smoking heavily. That's Ollie Hancock in the Ginetta. Bentley slams the door and stalks clear and into the gravel track for Ollie Hancock. I expect I was just trying to pull the car off somewhere safely. Now both of those cars are quite proximate to the edge of the circuit. For Richard Chamberlain, another safety car would be an absolute disaster for him, really, because he had built such an advantage, but there waved yellow flags. The safety car board, though, has not been dispatched. It's the car of Hancock, though, that might pose the problems. While Tom Ingram has got Rory Butcher beginning to close up on to his tail. Tom Ingram running in the GCC group. Butcher now to the fore of the GTB group. Rob Gaffney, of course, remains at the head of GTA, but that run along the Cooper Straight, all covered by wedge yellow flags, does take away a good overtaking opportunity. For Phil Bergen, though, it's all about the lap times. There is the aforementioned Rob Gaffney. Gaffney in consummate command of his group. Here comes Richard Chamberlain. Chamberlain about to reel off another lap now. Waved yellow flags along the Brabham Straight would suggest that the safety car is out. Indeed, yes it is. The safety car boards are shown, and with cars near to the edge of the circuit like that requiring recovery, have to bring the race under control. But the marshals, of course, doing a fantastic job. So it's time to go racing once more, but look how it's all closed up. Phil Bergen now in second place, right onto terms with Richard Chamberlain as we go green. We have then got Gareth Downing a lap down in the Evora trying to carve through, but look further back in the picture, the white Ferrari of Tom Ingram. He has got Rory Butcher snapping at his heels, so there are plenty of fights to be resolved in the last 10 minutes or so of this race. There is Butcher, absolutely bumper to bumper with Ingram as the pair of them come down out of Druids. They are carving their way through the traffic as well. That's Dominic Malone, who is about to go a lap down as Andy Roby applies plenty of pressure to Mike Brown. They've got Martin Johnson just behind them. That is a battle for position as well. And this is so often the case when you get a late safety car, suddenly the complexion of the race can really turn. This is a golden opportunity for Phil Bergen to try and snatch victory. Tom Ingram racing hard to stay on the overall podium. It's Charles Hollings picking his way through a little bit of traffic. Andy Schultz not risking the car, as you can see, just looking to gather up as many points as he possibly can. Has a huge spin for Dominic Malone coming out of Westfield, and thankfully they all miss the rotating Porsche. That could have been very nasty indeed. Malone's going to lose an awful lot of track position, probably gain an awful lot of blood pressure percentage points, but he is still in the race. There's a little bit of a move from Nathan Freak inside Martin Johnson. Around goes Freak in the Ginetta into the Armco barrier. That was optimistic at Stirling's, as Chamberlain still leads from Bergen. Now I hope that Nathan Freak has been able to get himself back under speed, because he's come to a halt there next to Stirling's. That car is in a potentially dangerous position, and the race director may elect to try and retrieve that under safety car, although I fear, at the point in the race where we are, it might not be time to deploy a safety car and go racing once more. We'll find out in due course. Meanwhile, here is a great scrap between John Saunders and Tom Webb. This is for second in the GTB group. They've got Andy Schultz, who is a lap down, just riding in behind them. Two leaders turn in to Hawthorn now, and Phil Bergen is in with a real shout at winning this one, because He is closing up onto the tail of Richard Chamberlain. Chamberlain, though, is a master sometimes of driving within himself, so we'll see whether or not he's got one or two more tricks up his sleeve as the two leaders turn through Sheen on towards Stirling's. They're arriving left-hands now, of course, wave yellow flags. Now there is Nathan Free, who has recovered and now is perpendicular to the tyre wall, and that car is in the line of fire if anything should go wrong for anybody else through Stirling's. Accelerating along the Bradman Straight. Richard Chamberlain, no concern to him. He concludes another lap. Meanwhile, the fight for third, it's still Tom Ingram who is just ahead of Rory Butcher as they put the lap on Gareth Downing into Kilben. Butcher following right in Ingram's wheel tracks as they climb out of Paddock up Hailwood Hill into Druids. Brilliant racing throughout the field. That's sometimes what you can get when the safety car comes out. Charlie Hollings in fifth, just not quite able to get involved in this fight for third place, which slows dramatically, and it's red flags. The red flags come out. Oh, that's such a shame. Just as the race was coming to the boil, it gets brought to a halt early on, and we're well over half race distance, so unfortunately it won't be restarted. So all of that means a fine and memorable victory for Richard Chamberlain. He acknowledges the applause of the marshals, withstood that pressure late on from Phil Bergen. Look at the results then. Chamberlain and Bergen win it. Tom Ingram and Marcus Hogarth in third place. They win the GTC group, clear of Colin Payton and Rory Butcher, who claim GTB honours, and Rob Gaffney at GTA Victor.
Richard, congratulations on winning round 17. Tell us about the race.
Thank you very much. It was a surprise. Starting, I think I was 17th. I could hardly see the start line, but the car was pretty good. It was poorly, but it went very well, and I got up to 5th or 6th, I think, fairly quickly. The people were very good. They went silly. Then it got difficult, and then all of a sudden I saw the Aston and the Audi, and I thought I might be in for a win here if I can hold all this together. And the car went perfectly. Everyone was very well behaved. The safety car at the last minute was a bit of a shame because the Audi was right behind me. But I was very pleased, and thank you very much for organising a great day.
Rory, Colin, congratulations. Colin, it's your first win in GT Cup. Tell us a bit about the race.
Well, I was lucky I had a good start, and asserted my position through round into 30s, and it all kind of loosened off from there, and just got in a rhythm and kept going and tried to give Rory a car in decent shape for when the pit stop window opened. So it all worked out really well on my part, and then over to you, Rory.
Excellent. Rory, congratulations. Tell us
thanks.
how it went when you took over.
Yeah, well, it was just kind of plain sailing from there because Colin did a fantastic job. We both had safety car periods, and Colin handled that situation really well and actually built a pace in the second half of the stint, which just put me in a fantastic position. And it's your first win, Colin. I'm glad to be part of it.
Rob, you took another win and quite literally on the line. Tell us about the race.
Yeah, no, obviously it was a hard race. We had to go out there. We had a 40-second success pit stop, so we knew we had to make that up early on. Our championship rival didn't, so it was hard work. Obviously, we got a good lead. Went out there, done the pit stop, got back out actually right behind him. We was about 6 seconds behind, so the safety car really helped us out. Obviously, we got back onto the back of Gary Smith and Mick Mercer, and from then it was a full-out battle. Unfortunately, obviously, on the last lap, just as the red flag came out, we actually done a drive shaft and took a bit of an oil line out with it. But the red flag saved us. But it's one of those things, you know, we're still here and we won.
Thank heavens for small graces, eh?
It all happens for a reason.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Marcus, another win for your GT Cup campaign. Tell us about the race.
Yeah, a really good race actually. Coming off the back of a win yesterday, which was hard work, and then today we got a good start running in P3. Started P5, got it to P3 by turn 2, and then the lads out in front, the protagonists in the GT3, decided to have a kiss and a cuddle and took one another off. So we're leading the race. From there, safety car held on to the lead, and then brought it in for Tom to have a go in the second half of the race.
It looked to be very close between you and Wayne and the Lotus of Gareth, so must have kept you honest.
It's always incredibly close between me and Wayne in the same sort of car, similar levels of experience, I guess, and we're both pushing very hard to try and win this championship. So, yeah, it's always close with Wayne. The Lotus today was incredibly quick as well. That really did take some keeping behind us. But yeah, really enjoyable race.
Congratulations. And it looked like the hardest thing you had to do was get the cork out the champagne bottle.
It was an incredibly hard task.
Congratulations.
Cheers, thank you.
Tom, this is your first visit to the GT Cup podium, so and your first win for a few years. You must be quite happy right now.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it was first time back on a podium in what seems like an eternity. So we've done a good job this weekend. Mark has done a cracking job yesterday, get the win. So yeah, only right that he shipped me in to try and match what he did. So yeah, we've had just about the perfect weekend really. So gets us closer to that top of that championship.
Charlie Hollings at one point was setting the fastest lap of the race, so clearly he was gunning for you. Was it hard trying to keep him behind, or were you able to just run your own race?
You were conscious of it, of course. Yeah, I mean, you know that Charlie's a quick guy, and we did have a good advantage over the pit stops, about 25 seconds. So it was nice to have that little bit of a buffer, which meant you didn't have to go hell for leather. You could kind of hold it back slightly, but at the same time, it was in the back of your mind that you've got somebody that is trying to catch you pretty quickly. And certainly when those safety cars came out, I was thinking, oh God, that means he's going to be right on the back of us.
So leaving Brands Hatch then in terms of the championship, Wayne Mars and Charles Hollings out front, just 8 points clear of Paul Bailey and Andy Schultz. Then Marcus Hogarth and Tom Ingram in third.
Well, that's it for our second visit to the Brands Hatch GP circuit. Stay up to date with the racing by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and of course the GT Cup website, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Donington.